Well, hello and welcome to Midweek Minute on a Friday. And I believe it's the 12th of February, 2021. Apologies for not getting a broadcast out last week. We had some technical difficulties that we could not overcome. And it seems we've gotten those fixed this week and excited to be back with you. We began a little study. In fact, this is part 4 in a little series that we've titled Disappointment. Disappointment is unavoidable in life. It's a reality. It's a fact of life. But we really not choose to experience it. We want all of our desires to be fulfilled, all of our dreams to come true. In fact, disappointment has been defined as the feeling of dissatisfaction that results when your expectations are not realized. Expectations in life. We all have them. And we're not immune as Christians. In fact, I think our expectations are enhanced when we understand that there's nothing impossible with God. But we'll find out as we study scriptures that our expectations must come from Him, be matched by Him. And we feel like sometimes, well, wait a minute, I'm not really getting what I want in this. But understand how often we get something we want, then wonder why we wanted it. And God knows our deepest needs and desires, and more than anyone else. And so when we look at the scriptures, the last time together, we took a new Old Testament example, Naaman, and he was like the captain of the army of the Assyrian king, and he had leprosy. And long story short, he was connected to the prophet Elisha, who gave him instructions on how to be healed from leprosy. But we find out, unbelievably, his initial reaction was disappointment that of the direction of Elisha. And you go, what was he thinking? Well, sometimes we're the same way. We're tunnel vision. We're short-sighted, and we get locked in on something. We don't see the bigger picture, the greater blessing that is involved, and we can miss it. Fortunately, Naaman decided to listen to Elisha, and of course he went down into the Jordan River, dipped 7 times, and was made whole and healthy again. And so we see that our disappointments are matched by God's appointments. And we just slice the dis off the appointment and put His in, H-I-S, and find out that every situation, every circumstance, every challenge in our life can be viewed as an appointment with God. And so we look at a New Testament example today, and we'll eventually get to Luke 24. But quickly, I wanted us to look at the fact that Jesus is preparing His disciples to experience what He came to this earth in mission for them to do, the redemption of mankind. And as He is on His way to Jerusalem and the disciples following Him, of course they know Jerusalem is an epicenter. It's a flashpoint. It's a place that if something big is going to happen, it's going to happen there. When you understand that they had all kinds of expectations about who Jesus was, why He was here, how He was going to carry out whatever their expectation or agenda was, that as Jesus begins to clearly reveal His mission in coming, they miss it unbelievably. In person, right there with Him, watching Him, listening to Him, walking with Him 3 times before the betrayal and the crucifixion and all that went with it. Jesus told them specifically in detail what was coming and why, and they missed it. And of course, from our perspective, we go, duh, what were you guys thinking? But sometimes we're the same way. We get, again, tunnel vision. We get focused on our agenda, and we don't recognize and receive the agenda of God. And so what's going on here is that as He reveals His mission to them, it is in conflict with their agenda. They're looking at Him nationally to perhaps be the king of the Jews that will overthrow the tyrannical, horrendous Roman rule over their lives. On a personal level, their own position, their power, their prosperity was involved for themselves and their families. And they were missing the fact that Jesus' primary mission was the redemption of mankind, reconciling lost mankind with God and releasing us from the bondage of sin and Satan and giving us eternal life. Well, let's look real quick at Mark chapter 8 and the first time Jesus reveals his mission and his agenda and how they missed it. Mark 8:31, and Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man, speaking of himself, must suffer many things. Now they probably tuned out right there. The last thing in the world they wanted to hear on Jesus' agenda or mission was the word suffering connected to it, because they were connected to him and to his mission, and suffering was not on their menu in their minds. Suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Now, they say it takes 5 positives to offset 1 negative. We're seeing maybe 1 positive here among several negatives, to be rejected, to suffer, to die, and then they miss the rise again 3 days. He spoke this word openly to them. Then Peter took Jesus aside, and began to rebuke him. And when he had turned around and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, "Get thee behind me, Satan, for you're not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men." In other words, he said, you're setting your mind on a fleshly agenda, on something that really leaves God out of the equation. It's what you want, what you desire, what you're dreaming, what you're demanding, hoping God to give it to you. And so that's the first time. Then in Mark chapter 9 and verse 30, then they departed from there and passed through Galilee. And Jesus did not want anyone to know it, for he taught his disciples and said to them, "The Son of Man is being betrayed in the hands of men, and they will kill him, and after he is killed, he will rise again the 3rd day." But they did not understand this saying, and they were afraid to ask him. I won't get into that, but read on in verse 33. So he came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, as they're journeying along, he could overhear their conversations. He can overhear their thoughts, our thoughts. We don't even have to verbalize a word. He knows the thoughts and intents of our heart. He said, and he asked them, "What was it that you disputed among yourselves, discussed among yourselves on the road?" And they kept silence, for on the road they had disputed among themselves who would be the greatest of all. So here they're positioning themselves with their agendas to be fulfilled, their expectations to be met in a fleshly way from Jesus. They were missed it. One more time, and it expands out a little further. Mark chapter 10 and verse 32. Now they were on the road going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus was going before them, and they were amazed, and as they followed, they were afraid. Then he took the 12 aside and began to tell them the things that would happen to him. "Behold, we're going up to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be betrayed to the chief priests and to the scribes. They will condemn him to death, deliver him to the Gentiles. They will mock him and scourge him and spit on him and kill him." I'm telling you, this thing is going downhill fast in their minds. They're like, why are we going up to Jerusalem just to be taken down? This is not fitting our heart's desires. But again, he said, on the 3rd day, I will rise again. So what's going on? We get to the end of Mark, and we're about to close here very quickly. We find they're distracted. Distracted with what? With their own personal agendas, their own values, their own wants, their own desires, their own dreams. And they're divided as a result because they're butting heads with each other. They're competing with each other. It sounds like kind of Christianity in the church today in the midst of all the political turmoil and the pandemic and everything, that we're divided, we're distracted, and then eventually find at the end of the Gospels that they desert Jesus. It says in Matthew 26:56 that all of them forsook him and fled. Listen, believers, in these last days, in these times of unprecedented chaos and conflict and challenge, we must be focused on the mission of Jesus Christ. What is it? The Great Commission. To go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature, and make disciples. Are we focused on that? Are we intentionally living out the mission of Jesus? Or do we have some crazy agenda of our own and being frustrated from the disappointment it's not being met? We'll get focused on him. Next week, we'll look at Luke 24 and a conversation with two disciples after all the events of the crucifixion, burial taking place. And they tell, as Jesus joins up to walk with them, unbeknownst to them, it's the resurrected Jesus. They said, we had hoped. In other words, our expectations were destroyed in Jerusalem, so we're gone. Well, listen, stay with him all the way. The best is yet to come. God bless you and have a great rest of the week.